At some point in life, comfort becomes the enemy. The old version of you isn't evil, lazy, or useless. It just did what it knew how to do with the mindset, resources, and courage it had at the time. But growth doesn't ask for permission. Growth demands pressure. If you don't force yourself to evolve, life will do it for you, and life is far less gentle. The truth is simple. The person you were yesterday cannot carry you to the future you want. That's why outgrowing your old self isn't optional. It's required, not because you hate who you were, but because you respect who you're becoming. Accepting that who you were was only a phase, not a destination, is one of the most powerful mental shifts you can ever make. Every version of you was created to survive a certain season, not to define your entire life. The mindset you had when you were struggling, learning, or simply trying to get by was necessary at that time, but it was never meant to be permanent. When people fail to grow, it's often because they mistake survival for identity. They start believing that the habits, fears, limits, and behaviors that once protected them are the same ones that should guide their future. That belief quietly keeps them stuck. Growth requires honesty. You have to admit that some parts of the old you were built out of fear, pain, or lack of options. There's nothing wrong with that. It means you adapted. But clinging to that version long after the danger has passed only holds you back. When you keep telling yourself, this is just how I am, you close the door to who you could become. The past should be a teacher, not a throne. You respect it by learning from it, not by living in it. Many people romanticize their past because it feels familiar. Familiarity feels safe, even when it's limiting. Old habits feel easier than new discipline. Old thinking feels comfortable compared to the uncertainty of growth. But comfort is not a sign you're in the right place. Often it's a sign you've stopped pushing. When you refuse to let go of an outdated identity, you unintentionally sabotage your future. You start making decisions that match who you were, not who you're trying to be. Your actions stay small because your self-image is small. Accepting that the old version of you was temporary allows you to upgrade your standards, mindset, and behavior without guilt. It doesn't mean you reject your past, it means you outgrow it. You can be grateful for the struggle while still choosing more. Real growth begins when you stop asking, who have I always been? And start asking, who must I become to reach the life I want? That question demands evolution. For example, imagine someone who grew up struggling financially and learned to think only about short-term survival. They worked any job, avoided risks, and believed stability was the highest goal. That mindset helped them survive tough years. But later, when opportunities for growth appeared, they kept turning them down out of fear. The moment they accepted that the survival mindset was a phase, not their final identity, they allowed themselves to think bigger, take calculated risks, and build a future instead of just getting by. Getting uncomfortable on purpose is the line that separates people who grow from people who stay the same. Comfort is attractive because it feels safe, predictable, and familiar, but that same comfort slowly shrinks your potential. When life becomes too easy, the mind stops expanding. You begin to repeat the same days, the same habits, and the same conversations, convincing yourself that stability is progress. In reality, nothing new is being built. Growth only happens when you are challenged, stretched, and pushed beyond what feels natural. Discomfort signals that you are entering new territory. Feeling nervous, uncertain, or even afraid doesn't mean you are failing, it means you are learning. Every new skill, discipline, or mindset initially feels awkward. The body resists, the mind looks for excuses, and the old version of you tries to pull you back into familiarity. That resistance is not a warning to stop. It is proof that you are stepping outside the limits that once defined you. When you avoid discomfort, you avoid transformation. Choosing discomfort on purpose builds mental strength. It teaches you that you can act even when motivation is low and confidence is shaky. Waiting until you feel ready keeps you trapped because readiness comes after action, not before it. When you force yourself to show up consistently, even when it's uncomfortable, you develop discipline. Discipline creates momentum, and momentum changes identity. Over time, what once felt impossible becomes normal, and your capacity for growth expands. Comfort also hides weaknesses. When everything feels easy, you never discover what you are truly capable of handling. Discomfort exposes gaps in skill, mindset, and character, giving you the chance to improve them. Avoiding challenge protects your ego but limits your evolution. Embracing challenge humbles you, but it also sharpens you. You begin to see pressure, not as punishment, but as preparation. Living in comfort might feel good in the moment, but it quietly steals your future by keeping your standards low. The life you want exists beyond your current habits, environment, and routines. To reach it, you must be willing to feel uncomfortable repeatedly, not once. Growth is not a single leap, it is a series of uncomfortable decisions made daily. For example, imagine someone who avoids speaking in public because it makes them anxious. Staying silent feels comfortable, but it also keeps them invisible. When they force themselves to speak up in meetings despite the fear, their voice shakes at first. Over time, the discomfort fades, confidence grows, and new opportunities open, proving that discomfort was the doorway to growth, not the obstacle. Discipline is the quiet force that turns potential into reality. Motivation is powerful, but it is unreliable because it depends on mood, energy, and circumstances. Some days you feel inspired and unstoppable, and other days you feel tired, doubtful, or distracted. If your progress depends on how you feel, your growth will always be inconsistent. Discipline steps in where motivation falls off. It doesn't. Ask how you feel and ask what you committed to. That is why discipline is the bridge between who you are now and who you want to become. The old version of you moved according to emotions. When things felt hard, you paused. When results didn't come quickly, you slowed down. When nobody noticed your effort, you questioned whether it was worth it. Discipline changes that mindset. It teaches you to move with purpose instead of emotion. You learn to show up even when you're tired, to stay consistent even when progress feels invisible, and to keep going even when rewards are delayed. This is where real transformation happens. Discipline is built through routine. Small, repeated actions done daily shape identity over time. Waking up early when you want to sleep, choosing focus over distraction, and saying no to short-term pleasure in favor of long-term goals may seem insignificant in the moment, but they compound. Each disciplined action reinforces self-respect. You begin to trust yourself because you do what you said you would do. That trust becomes confidence, and that confidence fuels higher standards. Without discipline, talent goes unused and dreams stay theoretical. Many people know what they should do, but very few do it consistently. Discipline removes excuses. It doesn't wait for perfect timing or ideal conditions. It understands that progress is built in ordinary, often boring moments. When nobody is watching and there is no applause, discipline keeps you aligned with your future. Over time, discipline reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. The gap between intention and action shrinks. The future you once imagined starts to feel attainable, not because life got easier, but because you became stronger and more reliable. For example, imagine someone who wants to get fit. Motivation gets them to the gym for a week, but discipline keeps them going for months. On days they feel tired or unmotivated, they still show up even for a short workout. That repeated commitment transforms their body, confidence, and self-image, proving that discipline, not motivation, created the change. Outgrowing people, places, and patterns without guilt is one of the hardest but most necessary parts of personal growth. As you evolve, your values, priorities, and standards change. What once felt normal may start to feel limiting, draining, or misaligned. This shift can create internal conflict because humans are wired for connection and familiarity. You may feel selfish for changing, disloyal for stepping away, or afraid of being misunderstood. But growth is not betrayal, it is alignment. You are not obligated to stay the same to make others comfortable. Some people were meant to meet you at a certain stage, not walk with you forever. They connected with a version of you that no longer exists. Others may benefit from your old habits, your lack of boundaries, or your smaller dreams. When you begin to grow, set limits, and demand more from life, it can unsettle those who are unwilling to grow themselves. Their discomfort is not a sign that you are wrong. It is often a sign that you are changing in ways they are not ready for. Guilt often comes from confusing loyalty with stagnation. Loyalty does not mean sacrificing your future to preserve familiarity. You can appreciate what someone meant to you while recognizing they no longer fit where you're going. Growth requires space. And sometimes that space comes from distancing yourself from environments that reinforce old behaviors or mindsets. Staying in places that no longer challenge you will slowly shrink your ambition and dull your discipline. Outgrowing patterns is just as important as outgrowing power. Old routines, coping mechanisms, and habits may have protected you once, but now they may be holding you back. Releasing them can feel uncomfortable because they are familiar, even if they are unhealthy. Choosing better patterns requires courage and self-respect. It means deciding that temporary loneliness or discomfort is worth long-term fulfillment. Letting go without guilt is an act of maturity. It means you understand that growth is personal and timing is individual. You are not responsible for dragging everyone along with you. You are responsible for honoring your potential. When you prioritize your future over familiarity, you create room for healthier connections, stronger habits, and environments that support who you are becoming. For example, imagine someone who decides to focus on personal development and discipline while their friends still revolve around negativity and distractions. At first, stepping back feels guilty and lonely, but over time, the distance allows them to build better habits, meet more aligned people, and step into a higher version of themselves, proving that letting go was not abandonment but necessary growth. Upgrading your mind before upgrading your life is essential because every external result is first created internally. Your thoughts shape your decisions shape your actions, and your actions shape your reality. If your mindset stays the same, any change in environment will be temporary. You can move to a new place, get a new job, or meet new people, but if you still think like the old version of yourself, you will recreate the same struggles in a different setting. Real change begins when your thinking changes. Many people chase external upgrades first, more money, better status, new opportunities, without realizing that their mindset is the real limitation. A mind filled with doubt will sabotage success. A MNT trained in scarcity will mismanage abundance. A mind addicted to comfort will resist responsibility. Until your inner world evolves, your outer world has a ceiling. That ceiling is set by what you believe you deserve, what you think is possible, and what you are willing to work for consistently. Upgrading your mind means becoming intentional about what you consume mentally. What you listen to daily shapes your standards. What you read influences how you think about problems and solutions. What you repeatedly say to yourself becomes your internal truth. If your mental diet is filled with negativity, distractions, and excuses, growth will always feel heavy. But when you feed your mind with discipline, purpose, and knowledge, clarity replaces confusion, and confidence replaces fear. A stronger mindset also changes how you respond to challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs to quit, you begin to see them as signals to adapt and grow. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" That shift alone can transform your entire direction. Life doesn't get easier, but you become more capable of handling it. When your mind is upgraded, your standards rise naturally. You stop tolerating environments, habits, and relationships that drain you. You become more focused, more disciplined, and more patient with long-term results. External success becomes a byproduct of internal alignment, not a desperate chase. For example, imagine someone who wants financial success but still believes money is hard to earn and success is reserved for others. Even if they get a better job, they stay anxious, make poor decisions, and remain stuck. Once they upgrade their mindset, learning about discipline, value creation, and self-belief, they begin making smarter choices. Over time, their income and lifestyle change not because luck improved, but because their thinking did. Stopping the need for validation is a defining shift between the old version of you and the person you are becoming. Seeking approval feels natural because humans want acceptance, but when validation becomes a requirement, it turns into a leash. Every decision, idea, or step forward begins to depend on how others might react. You hesitate, shrink, or delay your growth because you are waiting for permission that may never come. In that waiting, momentum is lost and confidence slowly erodes. The old version of you looked outward for confirmation. Praise felt like fuel, and criticism felt like a stop sign. The new version understands that purpose matters more than applause. When your direction is clear, opinions become background noise. You no longer need constant reassurance because your actions are guided by intention, not approval. This mindset shift frees you. You stop performing for acceptance and start working toward alignment with your goals. Waiting for validation also hands your power to other people. When their approval dictates your movement, they control your progress. If they support you, you move forward. If they doubt you, you stall. That is a fragile way to build a life. Growth demands independence of thought and action. Many meaningful changes, discipline, self-improvement, ambition, are lonely at first because they don't come with instant recognition. Silence is often part of the process, not a sign of failure. Learning to move in silence builds inner strength. When no one is watching, liking, or cheering, you discover whether your commitment is real. You begin to trust yourself more because you act without external rewards. Results replace noise. Over time, consistency speaks louder than announcements. When people finally notice the work is already done. Needing validation keeps you stuck in comparison. You measure your worth against reactions instead of progress. Letting go of that need allows you to grow at your own pace, on your own terms. You become less reactive and more focused. Your energy goes into building, not explaining. That focus accelerates growth and sharpens discipline. True confidence is quiet. It doesn't beg to be seen or approved. It's built through action, not applause. When you stop waiting for validation, you reclaim ownership of your journey. You don't need permission to evolve. You need commitment, patience, and the courage to keep going even when no one is clapping yet. For example, imagine someone who starts waking up early to work on a personal goal. No one notices. No one praises the effort. At first, it feels pointless, but they keep going anyway. Months later, the results are undeniable, and people suddenly call it discipline and talent. What changed wasn't approval. It was commitment long before validation arrived. Killing excuses before they kill your potential is about taking full ownership of your life. Excuses are dangerous because they sound reasonable. They don't feel like quitting, they feel like explanations. You tell yourself you're tired, unlucky, unprepared, or waiting for the right moment. Each excuse feels harmless on its own, but together they quietly drain your ambition. They steal time you'll never get back, delay growth you desperately need, and slowly weaken your belief in yourself. Everyone has reasons why things are hard. Background, environment, finances, fear, lack of support. These are real challenges, not imaginary ones. But the difference between those who grow and those who stay stuck is not the absence of obstacles, it's the refusal to use those obstacles as an identity. When you lean on excuses, you hand your power over to circumstances. You begin to believe that life controls you instead of realizing that your response to life is what truly matters. Excuses protect comfort, not potential. They help you avoid discomfort, effort, and responsibility. In the short term, they feel relieving because they remove pressure. In the long term, they create regret. Every time you excuse yourself from action, you reinforce a habit of avoidance. Over time, that habit becomes character. You stop trusting yourself because you no longer follow through. Self-respect erodes quietly, and confidence fades without you noticing. Taking responsibility is uncomfortable, but it is empowering. The moment you stop blaming time, people, luck, or circumstances, you reclaim control. You stop asking, "Why can't I?" and start asking, "How can I?" That shift changes everything. Progress may still be slow, but it becomes real. You realize you don't need perfect conditions to move forward. You need consistency, effort, and a mindset that refuses to quit when things get inconvenient. A relentless mindset doesn't deny reality, it works through it. It understands that growth happens in imperfect conditions. Waiting for motivation, confidence, or the perfect plan is just another excuse in disguise. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. When you act despite excuses, discipline grows stronger and potential finally has space to show itself. For example, imagine someone who wants to improve their skills, but keeps saying they don't have enough time. One day they decide to kill the excuse and commit just 20 focused minutes a day. At first it feels insignificant. Months later, those small, excuse-free sessions add up to real improvement, new confidence, and opportunities they once thought were out of reach. The conditions didn't change, the mindset did. Becoming addicted to progress rather than perfection is about shifting your focus from flawless outcomes to consistent improvement. Perfection is attractive because it promises certainty and approval, but in reality, it creates hesitation. When you aim for perfect timing, perfect plans, or perfect conditions, you delay action. You overthink, criticize yourself, and wait for a version of yourself that never fully arrives. Progress, on the other hand, is available immediately. It begins the moment you take one small step forward, even if that step isn't perfect. Daily improvement may feel insignificant at first, but it is powerful because it compounds. One better decision today may not change your life instantly, but repeated over weeks and months, it reshapes your habits, mindset, and identity. Progress builds trust in yourself. Each small win proves that you are capable of follow-through. That trust grows into confidence, and confidence fuels momentum. Momentum is what carries you through difficult days when motivation is low and doubt is loud. Perfection keeps you stuck in self-judgment. You measure yourself against an unrealistic standard and feel like you're always behind. Progress shifts the measurement inward. Instead of asking, "Is this perfect?" you ask, "Is this better than yesterday?" That question creates freedom. You allow yourself to learn, adjust, and grow without shame. Mistakes become feedback instead of failure, and setbacks become part of the process rather than reasons to quit. An addiction to progress also keeps you moving forward when results are slow. You stop chasing dramatic overnight change and start valuing consistency. This mindset prevents burnout because you're not demanding everything from yourself at once. You'll understand that growth is built through repetition, patience, and persistence. Small actions done daily create massive change over time, even when progress feels invisible in the moment. Progress-oriented people don't wait for confidence before acting, they act to build confidence. Each completed task, each disciplined choice strengthens momentum. That momentum changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who improves. Over time, that identity shift becomes unstoppable. For example, imagine someone who wants to improve their communication skills. Perfection would make them wait until they feel fully confident before speaking up. Progress pushes them to contribute just one thought each day, even if it's imperfect. Over months, those small efforts sharpen their voice, build confidence, and transform their presence, proving that steady progress beats perfect intentions every time. Respecting the pain that growth requires is about understanding that discomfort is not a sign that you are failing, but a signal that you are evolving. Growth is inherently uncomfortable because it pushes you beyond the boundaries of what you once knew. When you challenge yourself to outgrow old habits, mindsets, or environments, you will inevitably face resistance from both yourself and the world around you. You may question your decisions, feel misunderstood, or even experience loss. These experiences are not punishments. They are proof that you are stepping into a higher version of yourself. Pain during growth often comes from internal conflict. The old version of you is comfortable and predictable, and every change requires leaving that comfort behind. Doubts arise, fear of failure surfaces, and uncertainty seems overwhelming. This internal friction is a natural part of transformation. It forces you to examine your priorities, clarify your purpose, and build resilience. Without facing these moments, true growth cannot occur, because evolution requires testing, adjustment, and strength. The discomfort is a necessary process that shapes your character and solidifies your commitment to your future self. External pain is also common. People may resist your change because it challenges their expectations or comforts. Friends or colleagues who thrived on the old version of you may pull away, criticize, or misunderstand your choices. That loss or conflict can feel painful, but it is also an opportunity to realign your environment with your evolving standards. The discomfort of these interactions serves as a filter, ensuring that the connections and spaces you keep are supportive and growth-oriented. Embracing pain does not mean seeking suffering, but accepting it as part of progress. Those who avoid discomfort often remain stagnant, clinging to what is familiar rather than pursuing what is possible. Pain is temporary and it passes once the lesson is learned and the change is integrated. Regret, however, lasts indefinitely. Failing to embrace the necessary discomfort of growth leaves you wondering what if, long after opportunities have passed. For example, imagine someone leaving a secure but unfulfilling job to pursue a career aligned with their passion. The transition is stressful. Relationships at work may shift, and self-doubt can be overwhelming. Yet, by respecting the discomfort and pushing through it, they develop new skills, gain fulfillment, and build a life that matches their true potential, proving that the pain endured was the bridge to real growth. Building a vision so big that the old version of you can't survive it is about creating a future that demands more from you than you have ever given before. A small vision allows comfort, excuses, and mediocrity to persist because it fits within the limits of your old habits, mindset, and fears. But when your vision is expansive and compelling, it forces you to stretch, evolve, and rise above your previous limitations. The bigger your dream, the more you are required to upgrade your discipline, focus, and sense of responsibility. Growth becomes inevitable because the old you simply cannot support it. A powerful vision has the ability to eliminate distractions. When your purpose is clear, trivial matters lose significance. Criticism, doubt, and fear cannot derail someone whose eyes are fixed on a horizon that excites and challenges them. The old version of you thrived on safety, routine, and low-risk decisions, but a grand vision demands courage, resilience, and persistence. It pulls you out of comfort zones and compels you to take actions that the old you would have avoided. Every day becomes a test of whether you are willing to live up to the life you imagine, rather than settling for what feels familiar or safe. Excuses also diminish when your vision is big enough. Small goals can be postponed, rationalized, or ignored, but a vision that inspires urgency requires accountability. It forces you to say no to things that don't align with your growth, and yes to actions that push you closer to your dream. It's no longer a question of motivation because your vision creates its own pressure. It demands that you act, evolve, and persist even when it's uncomfortable. Creating a vision this big also reshapes your identity. You start to see yourself not as the person who hesitated, feared, or quit in the past, but as someone capable of handling immense responsibility and achieving extraordinary results. Your habits, mindset, and decisions begin to align with the life you are building, not the life you once knew. For example, imagine someone who dreams of building a successful business that impacts thousands of lives. The old version of them might have been content with a steady paycheck and predictable routines. But the vision of creating a business that requires leadership, innovation, and resilience forces them to develop skills, manage risks, and make sacrifices they never considered before. Over time, the person they become is vastly different from the one who would have remained small, proving that a big vision is the ultimate catalyst for transformation. Forcing yourself to outgrow the old version of you isn't self-betrayal, it's self-respect. You're not changing because you're broken. You're changing because you're capable of more. The future doesn't belong to the comfortable, the nostalgic, or the fearful. It belongs to those who are brave enough to evolve. Let the old you rest. Thank it for getting you this far. Then step forward with discipline, hunger, and vision and become the version of yourself that your dreams have been waiting for.